pretentious schools, toxic friend groups, and murder. Not to mention a killer fashion aesthetic. That's right, today we are talking all about dark academia. Let's get started. I'm Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about a subject that I am very excited to chat about, and that is the world of dark academia. Today I will be giving you my recommendations for books, film, and television series, and everything will be listed down below in the description box. But first, let me go ahead and tell you what the heck dark academia even is. So first of all, let me go ahead and say that there isn't really a textbook definition of what dark academia is, because it's a relatively new term. So everyone's definition is going to be varied by just a little bit, but here is my personal definition for dark academia. First of all, dark academia has two distinct parts: dark academia as a genre and dark academia as an aesthetic. Dark academia as a genre is going to include a lot of similar topics across the board. So typically the setting is going to be in an academic setting, like a prestigious boarding school or an Ivy League college, or potentially even a library, but more than anything, it's going to be where academics are and where scholars are. Typically also, it takes place around the autumn time, probably because that's the time when people go back to school. And it can also include themes such as secret societies, toxic friend groups. A lot of sexual tension is in dark academia because there's a lot of pining and sometimes unrequited love. Typically, there's also a very heavy emphasis on education and the importance of learning. So a lot of these characters in these books actually prioritize learning and education almost over common sense. Not to mention, a huge theme is typically murder. By the way, let me just go ahead and do this disclaimer right now. Because murder is such a prominent theme throughout dark academia, I will be saying that word a lot. Just a heads up. The second part of dark academia is the dark academic aesthetic. The dark academia aesthetic focuses more on almost like a vintagey type of fashion statement. So the things that you will see a lot of the times are tweed blazers, sweater vest, Oxford button downs, Oxfords, loafers. This also has a very specific look with its color grading, and the color palette for a lot of dark academic aesthetic things typically center around autumnal colors. Think Harvard University in the autumn after a storm with a dash of murder. And so today I will be sharing with you 10 dark academia books and 10 dark academia films and TV series, and they will have one of the two elements. So they will either be dark academia in genre or dark academia in aesthetic, but most will include both. Okay, so let's get started with the books. So I've broken down the book category into two parts. Half are books that I have personally read and loved, and the other half are books that I want to read. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the books that I have read. The first book on this list is a classic in the dark academia genre, and it is The Secret History by Donna Tartt.
Did somebody say murder?
The Secret History follows Richard in his quest to get into a very specific Greek and classics major at a private and very elite New England university. We're told as the audience right away that his very toxic group of friends has murdered a classmate, and the entire book is unraveling how it happened, why it happened, and who did it. I love this book particularly because of the heavy emphasis it has on the love of classics, and how that love of classic literature has actually altered the students' states of mind. It's no secret that I loved this book. Get it? No? Okay. The next book I have here is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. The sexual tension between this cast of characters is really gonna make you feel lonely and desperate, but it's worth it because you also get to hear Hamlet read to you throughout the entire book. So this book opens up on a scene of Oliver, who is getting out of jail for being wrongly accused of you guessed it, murder. The entire book is him telling what really happened to the detective who was assigned his case back all those years at the university. Highly recommend, by the way, that if you pick this up, you pick up the audiobook, because a lot of this book actually has passages from Shakespeare, and the narrator does a fantastic job doing all of the different cast voices and reading Shakespeare in this beautiful way. This book is a 10 out of 10. Next up, we have Special Topics in Calamity Physics. This is the Gilmore Girls meets Agatha Christie. We're following our main protagonist, Blue, who is an exceptionally intelligent and quite rambly teenager who is following her eccentric father as he proceeds to travel to different universities to guest lecture as a top professor. Along the way, Blue is actually invited to attend a very elite private school where she becomes obsessed with a teacher there. And when the teacher mysteriously dies, Blue tries to unravel what really happened to her. Was murder involved? Was it an accident? Is there more to the story than can possibly ever be expected by the synopsis alone? Yes, because the ending, holy cow, it blew my mind. Also, side note, the main protagonist in this book rambles a lot. She is very smart and she wants you to know that she knows everything about everything, and so a lot of this book is just trying to get through her lectures about all of the random facts that she knows, but believe me, it's worth it. Just push through the first couple bits about this book, and the ending and the plot twist alone absolutely will blow your mind. Next here, I have Bunny by Mona Awad. This is a book for people who like weird shit. Think Gilmore Girls on acid meets Frankenstein. The book follows MFA creative writer student Samantha and her interactions with a small cultish group of other writers who are attending her university. They call themselves the Bunnies, and Samantha follows them all the way down to Wonderland. This is a literary thriller with a sprinkle of surrealism, and it has a lot of great commentary on loneliness and the power of imagination.
Imagination.
Next up, we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Secret societies, magic, and yep, you guessed it, some more murder. So this takes place at Yale University. It revolves around our main protagonist, Alex, who belongs to sort of a secret society called Leith House. Alex has this magical ability that she can see dead people or ghosts, and her main job is to protect these secret societies and make sure that no harm comes to them from the dead. However, when a young girl turns up dead and her death is sort of brushed over, Alex believes that foul play is at hand, and she is determined to uncover what it actually means. There's a lot of really excellent commentary in this book, specifically about classism and rape. So there's also a lot of trigger warnings, obviously, that come with it, and it's a very, very dark book. The last part of the book was so incredible and so well done that I really, really can't wait to continue on with this series. And the final recommendation for books that I have read and loved is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. But I'm not just recommending this book, I'm recommending the entire series. There are 2 other books in this series, and in my opinion, it gets better and better with every single book. So this book is set in the very early 1900s, and we follow our main protagonist, Gemma Doyle, when she is sent to a boarding school in England. Once she is there, she meets a very toxic group of friends who sort of take her in, and they discover that there is a lot of magic and secrets that this boarding school is hiding. This is historical fiction, young adult, and it is also a fantasy. Highly, highly recommend the series. It gets very, very dark, and it's also pretty scary. The first book is good, but in my opinion, books 2 and 3 are incredible. I also really, really appreciated how Libba Bray blended classic literature into the series as well. For example, book 2 is heavily influenced by John Milton's Paradise Lost, and I really enjoyed the passages and the conversations in book 2 in particular, so highly recommend this. Now let's go ahead and move on to the books that I want to read. The first one I have here is These Violent Delights, and this is by Micah Nemerever. This book is about two university students, Paul and Julian, who meet at a university and develop a very unhealthy obsession with each other. Themes for this include both violence and delights. Next, we have Plain Bad Heroines, and this is by Emily M. Danforth. This is about two best friends who develop an unhealthy obsession for both each other and a writer, I think in the 1900s at a private boarding school. However, they both mysteriously die, and the school covers it up and then soon shuts down. Years later, a film company decides to tell their story and they hire actresses to play them. But while they are playing them at this boarding school, weird stuff starts to happen. I've also heard that this is a satire, that this is really funny, that this is really smart, and that it has elements of Gothic literature as well. All things that I think are going to be really fun to read about and I'm very excited about, so yeah, Plain Bad Heroines. Next up, we have All These Beautiful Strangers, and this is by Elizabeth Clefoth. This follows a girl whose mother has mysteriously died, and then she gets shipped off to a boarding school where her mother, I think, used to attend. While she's at this boarding school, she is invited to join this secret society, and once she is in, she realizes there might be some connections to her mother's death to this secret society. Very excited for this one. I think it's gonna be messy as heck, and I love that. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to films and television shows that have dark academia themes. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the television series, and then I will go ahead and go on to the films. The first television series that I want to recommend is How to Get Away with Murder. I'm gonna be honest with you, this television series scares me a lot, but honestly, it's such a good time that I absolutely had to include it. So this follows a group of law students who are going to a prominent university, and they are currently attending a class titled How to Get Away with Murder, where they learn how to solve a murder case for their trials. There is also a second timeline that is happening where these students are actually trying to cover up a murder that they collectively committed together. If you're interested in dark academia because of the aesthetics, you might want to skip this one because it's pretty modern. However, if you are interested in dark academia for its themes, toxic friend groups, sex, scandal, drugs, and you guessed it, murder, baby, this is the show for you. Next up, we have The Magicians. This is the show for everyone who is pissed that they didn't get to make out with Draco Malfoy or get their Hogwarts letter, and now you're in your 20s. I actually sort of feel like this show has everything you could ever want if you want a dark academic show. So this show follows Quentin and his best friend Julia, who both get invited to test into this magical university where you can learn how to become a magician. The magic system in this particular show is really interesting because it doesn't focus on like a chosen one trope. It's not like you have to be special and born with magical powers. You just have to be really, really smart. I really like that because they turned magic into something extremely academic. I would also say before delving into the show that you really should look up a list of trigger warnings. This is definitely very adult. I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it personally, but it was quite dark. Next up, I am recommending A Discovery of Witches. If you were a fan of Twilight, welcome to your show. I will say that there is a little bit of a cheesy romance in here between a witch and a vampire, but I actually really love their dynamic and I feel like it's pretty smart and well done, so I really enjoy it. This is following Diana Bishop, who is a PhD graduate trying to get a job at this university, and she is doing her dissertation on the study of alchemy. She's way more of a historian. She knows that magic exists in this series, but she really doesn't want anything to do with it until she pulls this mysterious manuscript that has been lost for centuries. I think it's really fun to watch. Again, this is a series where I have not finished it, but from what I've seen, I really, really love it. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to Dark Academia movies. The first Dark Academia movie that I have here to recommend is Enola Holmes. This movie is perfect in every single way and must be protected at all costs. So this is the story of Enola Holmes, who is the little sister to Sherlock Holmes. Enola Holmes has basically been homeschooled by her mother, who really believes that women should be well educated, well informed, and also badasses. And let me just tell you, every woman in this movie is a badass in her own right, and I absolutely love them all. When Enola's mother goes missing, Enola asks her two brothers, Sherlock and the other brother whose name I have no idea. I don't know. I didn't really like him, so I think I blocked him from my memory. But when they decide they are not interested in solving this case, Enola Holmes decides to take this on herself and find her mom. Cinematically, this is one of the most stunning films that I've ever seen, and I really, really enjoyed it. I will also say that this isn't exactly perfect for the dark academia genre because it does not take place in a school. However, the emphasis is on exploring and learning because Enola is trying to unravel this mystery. And there's also a lot of emphasis on education and the importance of educating women during this time, which I think makes it a perfect candidate for dark academia. Next up on this list, we have The Mummy. Ah yes, one of the only movies ever created where every single member of the cast could get it. But I digress. This happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time, and can I just say that Evie, the librarian from that movie, was a heavy influence as to why I chose to be a librarian. So thank you so much for the student at Evie.
I am a librarian.
So this movie in particular follows the librarian Evie and explorer Rick in their quest to find this mysterious Book of the Dead from an ancient tomb site. Aesthetically, this is perfect for dark academia. The clothes, the fashion, the color grading, the mood. I will say that again, for the genre, it's missing a couple of points because it doesn't take place in an academic setting. We do see in the beginning that Evie is working in a library, and that's where she first learns about this mysterious site from her brother. The rest of it is just exploring, and so the emphasis isn't quite as much on the academic setting. However, I'm still including this for several reasons. Number one being Brendan Fraser looking like this the entire time, which is more than enough of a reason to pick up this movie. But number two being that there is a deep appreciation for learning and the love of learning and exploring in this movie, and I think that makes it a perfect movie for dark academia. Next up, we have The Dead Poet Society, which is a classic. This is the movie you want to watch when you are just in the mood to cry, and there's no shame in that. We've all had those days. This movie follows the late Robin Williams character, who is a English teacher, and a new English teacher at that, at a prestigious boarding school for all boys. He slowly changes the way the boys view education, and specifically English, so literature and poetry, as he tells them to forget the rules of what makes up a good poem and instead to lead with a love and appreciation for art. This movie is so sad, but I think if you are someone who is most interested in a movie that is going to instill a deep love and appreciation for literature and for poetry, for the arts, this is probably the best pick on the list, and I think it is phenomenally well done. Next up, we have Tolkien. I love absolutely every single part of this movie. This particular movie explores the early life of author J.R. Tolkien, who was the creator of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, as well as The Hobbit. It follows his early life at school with his friends and the club that they created. It also follows his really beautiful relationship and how he fell in love, as well as some very tragic parts in war that he had to endure and survive. The emphasis, again, is is on writing and the arts and the power of the imagination, and how you can take very sad things that have happened to you and create beautiful things like works of art and literature out of your experiences. Tune in for the aesthetic and stay for the heartbreak. Next up on the list, I have The Skulls. Yale University, ancient secret societies, and a 90s aesthetic to boot. That's right, my friends, this movie is gold. So this is all about Luke, who is a scholarship student at Yale University, and Luke's main purpose in life is to try to become a lawyer. And so his dream is to go to Harvard University. When he is invited to join the Skull and Bone Secret Society, he takes the opportunity because he thinks that it's going to help him out financially. However, when his friend turns up dead, Luke is determined to find out what really happened, and he thinks that the secret society might have something to do with it. This is such an excellent fast-paced thriller, and I really like it too because one part of dark academia that I particularly really love is the aspect of secret societies in the world of academia, and I feel like this movie explored it really, really well. And then finally, we have the final movie on this list, which is Mona Lisa's Smile. I would say that this is much less of a dark academia style and more of a lighter academia style movie, as there is no murder involved at all. This is the story of a new art professor who goes to Wellesley's College to educate its students on the meaning behind art. I believe this entire thing takes place, I want to say maybe in the 1940s, and what the professor, played by Julia Roberts, discovers is that this is more of a finishing school. So the women here are more biding their time before they get married, even though some of them want to pursue education. And Julia Roberts' character really inspires and pushes them to educate themselves for the sake of themselves rather than for anyone else. Well, that is it, you guys. That is my list of dark academia recommendations. There are quite a few films and books that I have read and watched that did not make this list, and I will include those in the description if you're looking for more. But that is it for me, you guys. I had so much fun making this list together and watching all of these movies and television series. Until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!